Hey everybody, this is Talking of Carl back again for another movie spoiler review for the Halloween review month. And today I'll be covering one of the cult classics of Wes Craven's repertoire, Vampire in Brooklyn. One of the most underrated Eddie Murphy performances. I really wanted to talk about it this year because it came to mind at the tail end of last year's review month. I was like, man, I really gotta talk about Vampire in Brooklyn. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna get right into it. Uh, uh, it stars, of course, Eddie Murphy, who helped write the story, directed by Wes Craven, produced by Eddie Murphy. It's one of the last movies he produced in his with Paramount Pictures. Others being the Beverly Hills Cop franchise and the 48 Hours films. I did review the first Beverly Hills Cop movie. I think, like, I'm not too proud of that review because I felt like I was like kind of dozing off a bit because it's been like some stuff was, I had a lot to do and I really wanted to take care of that day. But I haven't done the sequel like I wanted to yet because the first two Beverly Hills Cop movies was like fantastic. The third one's severe downgrade. But anyway, yeah, Eddie Murphy playing the vampire Maximilian, also Preacher Paulie and Guido, because in most Eddie Murphy films he's always doing a caricature in like prosthetics and stuff. It was kind of his thing for a good chunk of his career. We got Angela Bassett as Detective Rita Vidier, Alan Payne as Detective Justice. And as a matter of fact, I don't even think they even gave him a first name. He's just Detective Justice. So of course he's always the righteous one in the in the movie. Kadeem Harrison as Julius Jones, the late John Witherspoon playing Silas Green, his uncle. Zacchaeus Moquet as Dr. Zeko. Joanna Cassidy as Captain Dewey. Anyway, now this movie didn't do too well in the box office in theaters, but once released in home video and stuff like that, a lot like many movies that came before and after it, it's become like those cult classic films that everybody dig. My friend of mine, she loves this freaking movie. She watched it tons of times, and she loves the way like Eddie Murphy says like fusilli. And it's very, some cool lines in this film. Like after Maximilian kills this Italian mobster, is like Julius offers him like some food, and it's like, thanks, already had Italian. I would like to invite you. I'd like to take you out for dinner. And I think this is one of those movies that a lot of women love Eddie Murphy in, because I think a lot of women think Eddie Murphy is pretty handsome, but this really kind of launched his sex appeal to a lot of women. It's kind of like it's kind of like the way certain women really love Burt Reynolds, back in like 70s and 80s and even in the most part of the 90s. It's just like, some unseen, only, yeah, guys can understand that, like, he's not an ugly man by any stretch, but I think what, any man would agree, like, okay, in this movie, okay, yeah, the dude, he's, got it, because the long hair, the suaveness, the gold teeth, I'm like, and then that Caribbean accent. This really kind of like, in my opinion, you know, gave Eddie Murphy some really deep sex appeal. Um. Uh. So the movie begins with this cruise, like this big ship, come crashing into the Brooklyn Harbor, and Silas and Julius notice it coming in. Julius runs off like a little punk, and Silas inspects it and sees a bunch of corpses, sprayed out all over the place. But at first, it's one of those typical horror movies. Like, you don't notice any bodies yet. It seems like nobody's on board. But as soon as you find that one dead person, then all of a sudden you run out and there's a bunch of dead people. Then this giant wolf come running off and then transforms into a man. Then he eventually calls the cops, and they kind of swarm the area and collect, like the corpses and investigating. And of course, Maximilian runs into Julius, and he needs essentially a Renfield, which in this case would be Julius. So he turns him into a ghoul, and I like the way he is you blink and you miss a type of line, but it sets up what happens in the very tail end, the last minute of the film, where, like as I said, this is a spoiler review, but in the end, Julius turns into a vampire. And some people, I remember like it was like, man, he just puts on a ring and somehow he's just a vampire. Like, as a kid, I was confused until like when I got older and I paid attention to the line where he Maximilian points out in his narration, because he narrates for most of the film, that on rare occasions ghouls might end up a vampire themselves. Don't know why that would be the case. Once again, I mean, like, because some vampires have mystical means to do certain things. Here's the thing. Now, I watch a lot of vampire films and TV and books of the vampires, and a lot of classic monster movies. So typically, I know the general rules when it comes to these mythological creatures. Now, it's not unheard of for vampires to make I want to say ghouls, but they're kind of familiars, like Renfield, or like those, like in Blade films, those humans as owned by certain vampire clans to do certain jobs during the day when they can't be active, in hopes that one day they will be sired and turned into vampires in the future. But there are, occasions where, they might have like ghoulish minions. And in Julius' case, he, like, as a ghoul, he's like slowly decaying, and to a point where his, body parts are starting falling off. But vampires actually has to bite you, and you gotta drink from their blood, because once they bite you, they drain like maybe like 80 to possibly 90% of your blood, and then cut themselves open, have you drink from their blood to kind of, because they have to bring you to near death, and then refill your system with vampiric blood to compensate. So once that's going through your circular system for a good 24 hours, because usually in most movies when dealing with vampires and transformation, it takes about a day. So you can argue that it takes like 24 hours for that to circulate through your system, so the transformation by that next night will be complete. But he cut him, so he give him a cut and then dips the blood into Julia's mouth, and he slowly started turning to a ghoul. I don't. I'm hard to reconcile. Like, why does that don't make sense to me? Either you turn him into a ghoul and that's the way it is, or it starts slowly turning him to a vampire, so that by the tail end he's the way he is. But you know, that's just me. I just thought that was okay. That's kind of, I won't say that's dumb, but it's kind of like you're really stretching the rules of this, because there are technically rules to certain things when it comes to supernatural creatures like these. There's like, standard things. Like sometimes crosses, holy water, garlic, silver, sunlight, stake through the heart. Very standard rules, to deal with undead vampires. But anyway, because it's not a zombie, because he still has faculties. So Max comes from the Caribbean in search for the Dampier or Dampier, half vampire, half human hybrid. Not unlike Blade, but kind of unlike Blade, where obviously Ansel Bassett, Detective Vadir, she doesn't know her lineage, and of course she doesn't have like the same stuff as Blade does, where she still have those supernatural gifts of a vampire, but she doesn't have that thirst for blood or anything like that. But what she does have is certain visions that she translated through her paintings. So it was 3 months prior to the story. There's whispers about Rita, given the fact that her mom was in like the nut house, but then she passed away, and so people worry about her like mental state or whatever. But Justice, because he he actually has feelings for her, but he respects her and he has her back. So they investigate the boat. See, come across Max's coffin and other artifacts that's underneath like the boat. Max distracts her to allow him and Julius to get all that stuff off the boat so it won't be seized by the police. But I fail to see how that was even freaking feasible to get all this heavy crap. Unless Max carried it all by himself. Yeah, he has super strength, but he can't carry everything. And then sneak off board without nobody noticing. That's I don't know. Like I said, because these monster films, you probably have to stretch the rules a little bit. But let us just let it slide on that one. So now, after Julius brings him, Max, to the apartment he stays at with his uncle being the landlord, but he also works at the docks. I guess he's work extra jobs, I guess. But it's a crappy apartment, but with Max's mysticism, he transforms it, I guess, use some illusion casting or something to allow it to look like a extravagant 5-star hotel like place. and he pays Silas in like gold doubloons. I'm like, if you have the money, you can go to an actual nice hotel in Brooklyn. I'm pretty sure there's at least a few that you can stay without, you know, with all, not only with decent security and you know, and a decent amount of privacy, and it'll be to your liking rather than have to waste magic to make it look nice. In my opinion, I thought that was kind of dumb if he's gonna pay for it anyway. But I guess, you know, he needed to be close to Rita, so like I'm saying, it's like there's gotta be at least a few close by nicer hotels. Anyway, so he wants Rita, but he can't just take her. He has to. He needs her to come to him willingly. So he sets up situations to get her in his thrall. The cops get this manifesto from the boat, which leads them to question this guy named Dr. Zako. And of course, Dr. Zako recognizes Rita because he didn't bother to tell her that, you know, you find out later that he knew her mother, and because her mother used to be, because he investigates, you know, situations when it comes to vampires. I mean, it's not like he's, I guess you can infer that he's like a vampire hunter, but he's more, you know, making it seem like he's more of like a researcher or something like that. But he knows more about Rita, which you'll think he'll be a little bit more open since he knows. It's like meeting up with Robin and he's, you know, running an investigation with old Batman, you know, cases. You're not gonna like withhold information if he knows, you know, the background and knows this guy's lineage. It'll be weird, you know. It's like, you know, if you know this girl and you know her history, why don't you just be out with it? Because she's been pretty much in the dark. She never knew her father. For all she knew, he died in like a, before she was born, in some kind of like attack or something like that. But Dr. Zako explains that by giving his book about, you know, on his travels, he ran into creatures that caused devastation, like on that boat, called the Hominis Nocturna vampire. But of course, Justice, being skeptic, he discounts it. Rita goes to the bar and gets saved by Max from this attacking snake that was in this cage. And he tried to swoon and charm her, but not only Justice, you know, interrupts, trying to get her like, come on, we gotta go. Then Julius, you know, blabbermouth, because he had to have some bit of comedy and levity in it, but he's, you know, being annoying, which infuriates Max. And I want to take him, and then of course this kind of like botches the whole initial plan, and you know, Rita just dips. Now I want to take a moment here to, you know, explain something. The stuff behind the scenes with Eddie Murphy, where he and because Charlie Murphy also pointed out behind the scenes where they initially wanted to be just straight horror and zero comedy, but Wes Craven, you know, did not want that. He wanted to still have some levity, but for the most part, and Eddie Murphy, you know, ended up agreeing, for the most part, Eddie as Maximilian has to be the straight man in this. And Eddie Murphy always wanted to, you know, play like a villain, and he loves horror movies. So that's why, you know, he really wanted this role. And I think he did like a fantastic job at this. He needed to be the straight man. Of course, he had, you know, bits and pieces of levity here and there. You still see that here. So that's not, he's completely devoid of that. But like, you know, where he's chastising Rita when she doesn't want to, says she doesn't want to be like him, and it's like, fine, go back to your old life. Uh, 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 you know, where they mock you at your, you know, at your place of work. And don't forget to tip your church. The preacher's in the whiskey glasses, you know, running low. Whiskey flasks is running low. You know, that, you know, bit of levity. So he has his funny moments, but it really comes forward when he's transforming into these other characters, played obviously by him. So that way he can further influence and manipulate Rita. But Craven relied on the regular people and leave most of the comedy to them. And also the fact that you have somebody to latch onto, like humans, you know, like regular people, the audience can latch onto the human characters because they can't relate to somebody like Max in the first place, and you should not need to. So that's why we got John Witherspoon, Kadeem Harrison, characters like him to, like, you know, fall on characters like them so we can fall on for the comedic moments. So Max and Rita, and there's some really scary moments here. It's like, no, don't like think for 1 second that, you know, this is, you know, you don't want to forget this is still a horror movie. So when Max and Rita go, I mean, when Rita and Justice go to Rita's apartment where she shares a place with her roommate, name what's her roommate's name? Nikki. And you see like a shot outside the window where Max is crawling upside down and he's peeking through on the corner of the window, spying on everything. And the makeup department on this is fantastic when it comes to Max's, like, you know, vampiric look, because it's just Eddie Murphy. When he gets into vampire mode, it comes in like 2 stages. One where he's just glowing eyes and fangs, and then third stage where it's like more of like a demonic look and, you know, really pronounced fangs. And his hair is a little bit more wilder. And I love that look. And I love the fact that it comes in 2 stages. And I think that's like a brilliant move. To show like the ferocity of a vampire that's like, yeah, they can just show you off the fangs and probably glowing eyes. But when they get into, like, you know, like a berserker rage like Wolverine, it's full demonic look. It's kind of like if you watch like Yu-Gi-Oh! GX as vampire lady in season 1 that Jaden Yuki duels, where she's like a vampire. You see her little fangs and everything like that, but when she gets real savage, her jaw kind of really dislodge and comes unhinged, and you see full frontal, like, serrated teeth. So it's, you know, or if you watch like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Angel, and you're dealing with vampires, they got their demonic look along with the fangs. So it's like, I appreciate that because it's like, you know, shows like a, you know, vampires has levels to their power. And intimidation. Intimidation is also a factor because we scare somebody, you know, the heart beats faster, which further pumps the blood, which they're gonna drink and need. So more the blood it pumps, the more they can drink. Makes sense. So Nikki is obviously flirtatious with, she's probably one of those like you know, girls that like to be a little fast. But she tried to like flirt with Justice, but he's not, interested in her. So he ends up driving off. Nikki bumps into Max, and she just, is like, oh, you wanna come up to my apartment for a drink and want some coffee? And they end up having sex, but ends brutally, where is awesome shot. It doesn't make any sense, but kind of awesome display where you don't see what he's done to her. You see the aftermath where he not only kills her, but he feeds off of her because he's removing certain things to isolate Rita. So he kills the roommate because it's a chess move here. He kills the roommate, and then you see a shot where on Nick, outside of Nikki's door, through the keyhole, it starts to bleed. Don't know why that needs to bleed, but it adds to the horror effect, like the room is just filled with blood or something. But later in the next day, Nikki is found on the top of the building, not hanged, but it's kind of like in like a crucified, display on a sign or something. And Justice finds it, and he has to tell Rita because it's just like the way she had painted it from her dreams. But before that, it was like it was a whole day before that she's even found. But Rita ends up going to the church, trying to speak to Preacher Paulie, who she finds solace in the church to it's kind of like her therapy in a way. And of course, Preacher Paulie gets killed by Max. Takes over, changes his form into making himself look like Preacher Paulie. The CGI, is crap in certain occasions like this, but he knows he can't walk into a church because vampire, duh. So he takes the whole entire service outside, and then does this whole preach about evil is good because God created the devil, therefore, and the devil evil. So by transitive property, evil must be good. And then he gets his whole entire choir to sing evil is good. And it's like, y'all are some idiots. Excuse me. And it's like, y'all, and both of y'all are full grown adults, and most of y'all older, and y'all don't sit back and it's like, because y'all look confused, but y'all follow along with it because y'all a bunch of idiots. But then Justice meets up with Rita because they got a lead about two Italian gangsters that were killed nearby the docks, and they know they work for this mob boss. So they end up going to this Italian restaurant where they bump into this thug named Guido, who is later killed by Max, and he takes over his appearance and then pretends to hold Rita hostage in the restaurant, and just to get Rita to tell him all what things that she like, like, hey, tell the cook, fix us something to eat up here. What you like, sweetheart? What? Tell us what you like. What? Tell us what you like. It's just like fusilli. It was like, go there and fix us some fusilli. like, he likes some wine. We'll go there. What kind of wine you like, lady? It's like red. It's like it's so freaking funny the way it's played. It's just kind of really get her to force her to tell her, just because later on he tricks, to trick her, like, oh, it's like, oh, this is my favorite, like, I can fix some mean fusilli. Oh, fusilli is actually my favorite food. It's like, the whole thing is like a whole chess match. It's usually, the oldest undead vampire who is good at manipulation on this scale. So he pretended to be subdued, and they take him in, and he noticed that Rita and Justice are like, has some bit of like romance budding, and he completely like interrupts all that. And he gets another funny moment as Max, where he pretends to escape, cause like a distraction, and all the cops like, hey, where'd that guy go? And then Max is points like, oh, he went that way. So it's subtle, but I still thought it was kind of funny. It's just like, oh, I don't know, he went that way. So now that he has the information that he needs, he pretends to, well, I don't say pretends, he actually did technically save Rita from a taxi that nearly hit her. I like to think that maybe it's not in the movie, but it seems so coincidental, because like, it's rare to see like a vampire actually doing something out of the goodness of their undead heart. But I like to think that Julius was driving that cab in order to feign like a savior moment, but it's not confirmed. Pardon me for the longest time thinking like, oh, that's just a legit coincidence that Max happens to like save her and did a legit good thing. But it just, further, it's kind of like when I did my review for which is blowing up, by the way, my review for the Dracula 2013 TV series that was on NBC a while back, that that Dracula actually did do something good, but it just so happens to fall in line to what he wants in the long run. So can you honestly say that, was it a true good deed if it still benefit you in some way? It's kind of like this. That's like, sure, you can say he did a good deed, but it still benefited him because it further draw her in. So he convinces her to go out, to get like a limo ride to come pick her up, and so they can have like a night for dinner. So she goes off and meets up with Max, and once again, it's like a dingy neighborhood, and it's like, and she walks up into this kind of like a palace looking room, and so they dance. He bites her, but it's not complete. She's like, she's slowly starting to turn into a vampire, but the deal isn't signed, or at least the contract isn't complete, until she actually consumes innocent human blood, or just human blood in general, but they say innocent blood. So that's when Justice shows up into her apartment and let her know that Nikki's dead, and it's just like how she painted it. And she started to notice, right when she contemplating on biting him, she knows that she's starting to disappear from the mirror. So she runs out, goes to Max, and discovers that he's a vampire. He's been manipulating her, and he comes clean about her parentage. He uh, he tells her that her dad was actually a vampire, an evil vampire who manipulated her mom, who, like Zeko, was, I guess, maybe like a vampire researcher or possibly a vampire hunter, probably more than likely. But she fell in his thrall. He impregnated her, but the villagers, or like the people in the Caribbean, eventually killed him, and she ended up, after giving birth to Rita, was eventually institutionalized, and that's how she ends up in like a foster system and grew up being a cop and stuff like that. So once Justice comes talking with Dr. Zeko, after he's starting to be convinced of these, weird goings on, kind of realize, Rita is enthralled by this vampire Max. He goes to, these two go to try to confront Max to hopefully destroy him before Rita consumes blood. And I kind of like the twist on this thing, but we'll get to that in a minute. But while Justice try to take on Max, obviously there's no match for him in the physical combat, but he's trying to stake him. But Zeko tried to do the sticking, and it leads into one of the funniest moments that still stuck with me after all these years. It's right, I think it's the only film that I can remember where somebody does this kind of big blunder in like a vampire related content, where Zeko stabs Max, but he doesn't aim for the heart. He stabs in the stomach, and Max is like, the heart, this is my stomach. The heart, this is my stomach. You know the rules, Zeko. And so he like trips him up and tries to kill him, but Rita intervenes. So they go in, these two go into another part of the room. And so Justice goes in trying to save Rita and stops Max. But Max tries to get her to bite Justice to complete her transformation. But Rita, in a complete twist, because you would think Justice would be the one to come save her, because it's typical in these kind of monster movies that the female gets rescued by the guy who ultimately she's going to end up with, but she ends up saving herself, which is a nice cool twist. It isn't cheesy like it would be played this day and age, where it's like, oh, a woman can't be saved by no man, because that'd be, misogyny and blah blah blah. No, this is very organic, where it's like, she completely is still within her faculties, but she's faking it just to, it's like, like she's playing along and convinces him to kiss her. So, so that he can get close enough, and then takes the dagger from Justice's hands and then stabs Max through the heart. And his last words to Rita is like it wasn't out of any kind of anger or bitterness, because I think he legit still had feelings for her, because vampires do still feel feelings. They still have emotion. So he's just a look of shock and betrayal and surprise, but he wasn't angry at her. He was just like, I knew you were a killer. So he's more proud of her regardless. So he ends up dying, but he transforms into a bat though for some reason, before disappearing. And the ring falls into the limousine that he was riding in, where Julius finds it and puts it on and transforms into a vampire. But Rita and Justice, Rita's, back to her human self. She makes out with Justice. The day is saved. And Julius, with his uncle driving the limo, goes off to parts unknown, and that's the end of the movie. Very good film. Good classic horror film. I argue it should be not like a remake, but a sequel to this, like a long awaited sequel. I think this deserves like a sequel, unlike most films where it feels like, hackneyed a bit. Whereas trying to cash in on the popularity of the film. But it's just like somebody who actually has like a story idea and has love and reverence for this film could easily bring this back with a new cast of characters, with a few of the old cast members taking part as supporting. A new vampire shows up in Brooklyn who was Max's right-hand vampire man or something, and tries to take over Brooklyn or something like that, or tries to do what Max did, try to there's a new Daywalker, and tries to do essentially what Max did, but not like beat for beat, but you know what I'm getting at. There's some different twist to it with a modern day story of vampire in Brooklyn. But you see maybe, or since now Julius Jones is now a vampire himself, he ended up birthing a kid himself, and he tries to take over Brooklyn and turning people into vampires with him at the head, maybe something like that. And then you get Angela Bassett and Ellen Payne to come back to, because with the new human characters going to the old characters for oh, there's been an incident back in 1995. I know a person, and you meet up with Justice and Rita, who's living a retired life, and they asking for their help in dealing with a vampire situation. I think that would be dope as hell. I always dream of doing playing a role in at least a vampire role in a sequel to Vampire in Brooklyn. I really love this movie. I love vampire stories. But yeah, that is a good dream of mine. It's not a hard set dream going to Japan one day kind of dream, but it's something if it happens, I'd love to audition for that kind of role. But I'll be just as happy to just watching a film like that again after all these years. But yeah, that was Vampire in Brooklyn. Very, very good film. Definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it before. But if you have seen it, please let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Like and subscribe. Share this with your friends. Hit the notification bell. I'll see you guys next week. Next week, I'm trying to get some couple of more comic books in the whole realm of the season, the Halloween season theme going on, because the next comic I'm trying to get done is John Constantine Hellblazer. So that's 13 issues. Not even halfway yet because I've been dealing with other stuff. So that is the next thing I'm gonna do. So look forward to that. But let me know what you guys think, and I will see you all later. As a matter of fact, I think tomorrow I need to get back to playing some games. I want to try out learning Johnny Cage on MK1. So that's the next time you'll see me stream again, because I've been taking a little bit break from game streaming for a little bit before Spider-Man 2 comes out. But yeah, look forward to all that. I'll see you all soon. Take care.